Good morning, Bozeman. How are you guys?
I don't think we need the microphones.
I know, right?
Voices.
So as Marnie said, my name's Jacqueline Carter. I'm a senior manager of the expert services team at the Oracle Marketing Cloud. I've been there about 6.5 years, and this morning joining me, I have
Paul Petroskey. I am on the marketing operations team at Medtronic.
and we are super excited to be here. So obviously, Paul and I are going to have a conversation today about their use of Oracle Eloqua as well as PFL and how their personalization has truly become personal. So I'm going to be more of a question and answer moderator, and Paul really is the star of our show. So before we dive into the specifics of the Medtronic team's campaign, a quick look at our Oracle Safe Harbor here. I want to set the stage for where we're at as marketers today, right? We truly are in an experience economy, and you might think to yourself, well, what does that mean? An experience economy is one in which our experience with companies and brands is just as important as the product or service itself. So I want you guys to think about that. When you look at these 4 words, it ties back to what an experience economy is. From a discovery perspective, we need to understand exactly who our target personas are. From an engagement perspective, we need to engage with our target personas on their own terms. From a consumption perspective, we need to understand that every single prospective customer, as well as current customer, is going to consume our marketing a little bit differently. And then last but not least, from a service perspective, we need to serve our target personas along their entire customer journey. So what that means is really understanding that it's no longer a linear approach. So how do we keep up as marketers in what we call this quote-unquote experience economy? At the Oracle Marketing Cloud, we talk a lot about shifting our focus to micro moments. So that's really ensuring that every single touch point and engagement that we have with our prospective and current customers, it matters, right? We can't just be sending them emails to send emails. We have to make sure that it's at the right stage in their journey and it's the right message overall. So if we were to look at micro moments as it pertains to Medtronic specifically, we need to know our customers. Medtronic, in their case, has used their data, which is a pivotal component, to launch and really leverage an account-based marketing strategy, which is really phenomenal, and I'm excited for Paul to dive into it a little bit further. From an anticipation standpoint, we need to anticipate what our target personas are looking for in Paul and his team's account-based marketing approach. They know that their target persona, which are surgeons, will require a physical sample, which we've got here, as well as a picture of it, which is pretty unique and interesting, you guys will find. From an engagement perspective, when we reach out to our target personas, we need to understand the overall terms and channel that they're interested in us reaching out on behalf, right? So surgeons specifically use their hands. We need to make sure, in Paul's case, that the sample is in their hands. They're able to touch it, they're able to feel it, get acquainted with exactly what Medtronic is trying to market to them, what they're sending them. And then last but not least, we as marketing teams need to think beyond. So we really need to break down the silos across our marketing, service, and sales teams internally to really refine the customer experience. Our customers know front and center when we're disjointed internally, and I imagine some of you, probably that's a pain point, right? So in order to shift and enhance and really focus on those micro moments, those are the key areas that we at Oracle Marketing Cloud focus on specifically, and Paul's team definitely has tackled each of these. So by far one of my favorite slides, and I say this because this really does play into my daily role at Oracle Marketing Cloud being on the expert services team. It's looking at your teams and our customers' marketing excellence and specifically your marketing maturity. So I would challenge you as you're sitting here, and again, not sure how these slides will be shared, but we'll make sure we get them in your guys' inboxes. But I would challenge you to self-assess where you're at on this slide from a marketing maturity assessment and through your journey to marketing excellence. You might be telling yourself or thinking to yourself, I'm more in the transactional and responsive marketing stage, and what we want to do is elevate and move you through your marketing excellence journey to that beyond marketing. And that's exactly where Paul and his team have really excelled. They've propelled themselves into a beyond marketing approach where they're delivering a really brand unified message across all of their different channels. So with that, or one more slide. So you're probably wondering, okay, when I conquer and tackle marketing excellence, when I nail those micro focus moments in this experience economy, right, what does it yield? Well, growth in revenue, as well as a positive impact on company performance, which I think all of us would agree when we're sitting there with our senior executive team, that are two pieces that are pivotal in being able to tie back marketing attribution and be able to know that we've impacted these two stats specifically. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Paul, where he's going to share with us who Medtronic is, as well as how their specific campaign impacted company revenue, as well as had that positive impact on company performance. So Paul, I'll hand it over to you.
Can I grab that clicker?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so if you guys were here last year, you remember my counterpart, Jeff Cowles, who went through a campaign he worked on with PFL. So some of this may look familiar to you. If you don't know who we are, our main focus is producing solutions and services that alleviate pain, restore health, and extend life across the patient care continuum. Of any presentation I do, this slide makes me, it's the only one that makes me nervous because I've definitely done it before. Where I'll say we're looking to extend pain and alleviate life, and I get off stage and they're just like, that doesn't sound good. So I'm glad I nailed it that time. And our therapies, our solutions, our products improve the lives of 2 people every second. So whether you're getting a pacemaker, whether you're getting sutured up, whether you're getting an insulin pump, we're touching patients on a global scale pretty much constantly. So who we are, or who my group is Medtronic is split into 4 main business groups. We work in MITG, which stands for Minimally Invasive Therapies Group. So anything and everything you're going to see in an OR is probably something we manufacture. And what our group does is we're kind of a 3-headed monster of general marketing operations. So we are the Eloqua people. We have basically everyone on the team is at least a master's, and we have luminaries and ex-admins, super smart people. We're also the demand generation wing of MITG. So we're launching, optimizing paid search campaigns, batch and blast email campaigns. And most recently, we've added to our arsenal that we're the experts when we're going to market with an account-based marketing strategy. To give you an idea of what we're working with and the scale we're looking at, this is our tech stack. Don't mean to brag. This is our baby. We love it. We have a lot of partners here, from Uberflip to Eloqua, Oracle Eloqua, I'm sorry, I always forget to add that on top, to PFL, which is the reason we're all here. So, that being said, we're going to jump into the Q&A and kind of explain and walk through how we have built this ABM experience for our end users pretty much from scratch.
So Paul, let's start by telling the audience a little bit about the human condition that you and your team were trying to solve for with this particular campaign.
Totally, yeah. So everything we do with the slide I shared at the top of the presentation is focused on the patient. And we identified an opportunity with one of our sutures, which is called VLOC. We actually have some in the box right there that we'll get to later. But when you think of suture or even think of fishing line, it's you touch it, you feel it, it's smooth. There's no alterations or anything like that. You can run your finger up and down it. What's special about this particular piece of suture is that it is what we call barbed suture, which if you run your finger down this way, it's going to feel like a normal piece of suture. It's going to feel smooth. If you go the other way, you're going to notice all these barbs in it. Why the barbs? Well, if you can picture, and the team and I were talking about, should we include like procedural videos or procedural images? I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm following breakfast. I'm not going to do that. So you guys are safe. You're not going to see anything horrible. So when we think about if you're suturing someone closed, you have those barbed sutures, which essentially act as anchors in the tissue. So you're getting a more cohesive, a more predictable closure. So we have VLOC, and we found an opportunity in pacemaker pocket closures. So when you get a pacemaker, they make a little pocket, they put the pacemaker in, they do everything they need to do to get that hooked up, and then they close you up with suture. And we identified, and we had claims to say that using this suture in this particular procedure is going to result in the best case scenario for the patient, meaning they're not going to have potential knot complications. A knot complication is something like, if we have fishermen in the audience, I see you, Charles. If you tie a fishing lure or a fly and you finish your knot and you tie it up, because I've done this 10,000 times, and there's space between the actual knot and the barb you're tying it to, that's not secure and it's going to fly off pretty much on the first cast, which is why I don't fish and I go straight to the beer cooler. So same thing kind of in the body. If you're tying knots that aren't completely adhered to where you're tying, if you start moving around, it's not going to heal properly. There's going to be pockets, and that tissue is not going to be as secure as it needs to be. We're reducing wound closure time. The special thing about this particular suture is that you don't use it in the general sense of tying knots. Basically, you go and kind of figure eight your way through and then tie it up and zip it, and you're pretty much set. So you're saving time. Good thing about saving time when you're closing someone up is that there's less risk of infection, less risk it's going to open again, which is all great things for the patient, and the distribution of tension through the actual wound. So it's not super tight at the top of the skin, and it's not super loose at the bottom of it. So you have a consistent closure all the way through. So when that person gets out of the hospital and starts moving around again, they're moving their arms and stuff, it's not going to open up. And we also think about the general demographics of someone who's getting a procedure like this or a pacemaker. They're going to be generally older. Their skin is going to be more fragile. It's going to be thinner. So you need something that's going to be as secure as possible, so you're not risking it opening it up again, which is painful for the patient, and it's a burden. And for the actual hospital and the surgeon, they're not having to go back in. They're not getting sued, which is something they like. It makes it a much more seamless procedure for both the end user or the patient and the surgeon in the account that we're trying to target.
So Paul, tell us, how do you connect human condition to a business opportunity in this campaign and at Medtronic? Yeah,
totally. So I'll just say ABM is our go-to-market strategy. We are in a very complicated, but this is the least complicated part of it. There's just about 6,200 hospitals in the US. That is our market. Those are the accounts we're going after. Very simple. A lot of this data is public, and we're such a large corporation that we already have a decent chunk of information on those 6,200. So when we're looking at it, and we started to plan this out, so we figured out, okay, VLOC is good for pocket closure. Now, who are we going after? So the great thing about working at Medtronic is we already make pacemakers. So it's not part of my business, but I can reach across the aisle and say, hey, this is what we're looking at doing. What data do you have to show with me? And it turns out they had a lot of data. So we were able to go through and figure out that of all the pacemaker pocket closures that were happening, we had about 45% of those. 45% of the market was getting Medtronic pacemakers. So from there, we can kind of figure out, well, okay, that's a lot of closures. Who should we specifically target in that list of accounts? Well, we should target the people that are probably doing the most right now that are not using our suture. So we're starting with this huge data set, and we're just drilling it down over and over and over again until we get something that we can project an ROI on even before we go live with the campaign. So they're already our customers, which helps quite a bit. We're not starting from ground zero. We're not necessarily going to market. We're just educating a surgeon that might not necessarily know we're in suture, that we're in suture, and we have the best suture for them for this specific procedure. And kind of like I said, this slide, we've all seen an iteration of it before, but it's true and it's not true in this scenario. The people we're going after are not anonymous to us, nor are we anonymous to them. Everyone knows in this space who Medtronic is. Either they're using a pacemaker, they're using an insulin pump, they're using an energy platform. They're just not aware of this specific product or procedure that we're trying to educate them on. So we're still going through all this. We're just we have a leg up instead of starting from ground zero because we already have that brand recognition. We're already communicating to them that, hey, you trust our pacemakers, you're going to trust our suture even more.
So Paul, let's talk a little bit about how you're leveraging Oracle Eloqua, PFL, and then your larger tech stack that you showed us a snapshot of.
Yeah, this is where it gets real fun. So we've all seen the data on why, I know Daniel and Andrew went through it yesterday. We know multi-channel is better. So we have a lot of channels, and we have a lot of channels going for this campaign. So from demand-based, which we're using for our account list and targeting and ad targeting, to PFL that's creating the beautiful kit we have with us, to Salesforce that's managing all those opportunities, to Uberflip, which is giving them all the resources we have. We developed the gold standard in terms of content, as a little segue in this space, is surgeon testimonials. They do not care about sell sheets, product guides, product pamphlets. If you get one of their counterparts to talk about a particular product and endorse that product, that's when they start listening. So with our Uberflip page, we have a couple of different surgeon testimonials, and then all the other content that's specific to this procedure. That flows into Adobe Analytics, which then flows with Salesforce and PFL and demand-based and Oracle data into Tableau, where we build our master dashboards, so I'm not spending 99% of my time creating reports. And then our favorites, Oracle Eloqua, is kind of the linchpin that ties all this stuff together.
So a lot of different partners that are involved, but let's walk through the specifics of what the campaign looks like so everyone in the audience can get a clear picture of that.
Yeah, definitely. So we're about to have your Vanna White moment, Jacqueline. Very exciting. So you can see in these the left side of the screen with these 4 boxes that the ads we're going. So we're targeting very specifically at very specific accounts. Our suture and this procedure. Same thing with the emails, same thing with the Uberflip page, and same thing with the experience kit. And if we want to dive into this baby, oh yeah. So, we were talking backstage, and I come out of this conference with A, a million ideas, and B, like, how do I get on those landing pages to get that free bottle of wine and all these like cool knickknacks? No one's going to do that with this one. So what these surgeons are getting in the mail, and we're targeting a very specific type of surgeon, which is called an electrophysiologist, which is doing this implant procedure. At the base model, we started talking with Charles about it. And we're like, well, we want to get the suture to them. So we can throw it in a box or a package or something like that with a rep card that says, hey, here's the suture. Let me know if you have any questions, with a dynamic rep card. And then we started to think about it, like, what do we actually want these people to do? We want them to use it. We want them to touch it. We want them to understand what the barb means and why it's more secure. So why don't we just give them a suturing experience in a kit? So that's kind of our final state, where they're getting 2 pieces of suture right there. They're getting an artificial skin pad. Where do you get artificial skin pads, I'm sure you're wondering? At a horrible site called Limbs and Things, which I do not recommend you go to. Still gives me nightmares. Still gives Charles nightmares. They need a needle driver and a forceps to actually start doing the suturing. We give them an actual, I mentioned at the top that how you actually suture with this product is a little bit different than your typical suture. So we give them a step-by-step guide of how you do a closure with this product. So they're opening it up, and we are giving them everything they need to touch it, feel it, experience it, come up with any questions they might have. And then the only thing that's not pictured is a rep card that just says, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. And we're going to get into nitty-gritty stuff. A couple different components of this campaign. This is the sales enablement piece of it. So we've identified a lot of the market, but I'm not in the field. I can't be in the field. I don't know what's going on a day-to-day basis. If they identify people that we have not targeted, fantastic. Go into Salesforce, drop them in a campaign. That's going to Eloqua. They're getting the emails, and then once they receive all of that, this is what we call the inquiry to revenue. This is what Jeff talked about last year, but basically you can kind of follow our Visio workflow, but everyone goes from Eloqua to our landing pages on Uberflip or hosted in Eloqua that then goes to PFL. And an important part of this is that we need to qualify in a couple of different presentations. I've talked about it today and yesterday. How do you qualify and make sure that you're not throwing literal boxes out the window that could produce revenue? They're going to what we call our lead qualification team before they go into the PFL workflow, which just makes sure that, okay, Dr. Jacqueline Carter requested a box, and the LQS team will follow up, confirm that all those details are correct, the mailing address, that she's an actual person, because we've had issues with that before of people ordering way too many incontinence diapers that did not need incontinence diapers. So making sure that the person on the receiving end of this box is a real person, which also adds into, and I'm glad the first two presentations have talked about this, the follow-up after. So making sure that our biz development team is tagged to say, hey, you got a box a week ago. Did you have any questions? Do you want me to stop by? Do you have, how do you want to do? Do you want to set an appointment? So we can track everything through that experience.
So Paul, quite the amount of moving pieces that are a part of this entire campaign and initiative. So explain to us what success looks like, as well as how you're measuring success and the metrics, if you have any, that you can show us.
Yeah, definitely. So the great thing about this campaign and our team in general is that nothing was really new. Maybe part of that cross-sell stuff of us going from our MITG group to the other part of Medtronic that actually had the Pacemaker data that we leveraged for this campaign. But for the most part, we were always told plagiarism is bad, but we begged, borrowed, and stealed pretty much from all the other campaigns that we ran as a group. So we're able, once we do that, we're able to benchmark and look at something like this. So this is something that our Tableau dashboard would look like. You can see my Medtronic branded redactions, because if I did not do that, legal would be waiting for me behind this curtain and take me to an unmarked van, and bad stuff would happen. So we can kind of look at and go through our waterfall and measure it at each stage. So this isn't this particular campaign, but I can leverage this campaign to say, if I'm going after 150 accounts with this, how many impressions do I expect to see? How many clicks through Eloqua emails with sends and click-throughs once they get to a landing page? What is that looking like? How many sessions do I have? How many page views do I have? What content are they looking at? What forms are they filling out? Once that goes to Salesforce, how many opportunities do I have? How much are those opportunities worth? Are they worth? And then the last part of this is something that we've solved in the past 9 to 12 months. I don't know if you guys have issues with this before. Stop me if you do. But sometimes salespeople don't enter in pertinent and correct information in Salesforce on their opportunities. Really? That's crazy. We do too. So a way we've kind of figured out of how to, we're still tracking all the Salesforce stuff. We still want them to enter in all those opportunities and make sure they're as accurate as possible. But since we're going with this ABM approach, and we already know at the onset that we're going after 170, 250 accounts, we're able to, with this dashboard, track all the activity and the uplift at those accounts with our ERP data. So maybe I don't see, I see 50 opportunities on my campaign that is worth $50 total because they all entered it at $1. I can go into the ERP data and say, actually, targeting those 50 accounts with those opportunities, with those specific item codes and the SKUs that we're targeting with this campaign, we actually saw X amount in incremental revenue and uplift at that account. So we're able to get both data sources and able to kind of cheat Salesforce and say, you try to trick us, but we can still show some revenue on this. So it's pretty powerful.
So Paul, tell us, after defining success, how do you scale a campaign like this for future efforts and different target personas and so on and so forth?
Yeah. So I would say that everything's already made. Everything's pre-baked. We have this strategy. We've done it across the business. Maybe we're interchanging channels and we're swapping one channel for another. But we have a formula that works. And all we did with this specific campaign, VLOC for pocket closure, is solve one specific procedure with our piece of suture. Now we can go back through and say, well, what does it look like from a bariatric surgery lens? Because we're in that marketplace and they need to close people up too and use suture. What does it look like from a thoracic lung health space? What does it look like from a dermatology space? And we keep going and iterating on this. So all these markets are there, all these accounts are there, the strategy is already pre-baked into them, and we know how to go to market, and we know that what's important to these end users is feeling it, touching it, being able to ask questions, being able to suture with it before they even get in front of a sales rep. So they already know our product's superior, the strength is there, we have the clinical data to share with them, but to get them as interested as possible before we're in the actual sales environment. So we're able to scale just because of our industry. If you're opening someone up, you got to close them again. And we can keep finding those opportunities across the care continuum and leverage all of our technology to accomplish our goals.
Fantastic.
So with that, we want to be conscious of your break. Any questions? Any comments, concerns? No one went to Limbs and Things, I hope? Don't go there. Do not go there.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much. And if you do have questions, Paul and I will be obviously in the afternoon sessions and at happy hour or the cocktail hour. So we anticipate none of you will likely get this box in the mail, but we'd be happy to chat further. So thank you guys so much.